The office buzzed with the low hum of printers and the soft chatter of coworkers. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and phones rang intermittently, blending into the rhythm of a typical workday. Papers shuffled across desks, chairs squeaked against the polished floor, and the faint aroma of coffee lingered in the air. Into this ordinary scene stepped Bruce Lee, calm, measured, unassuming. There was nothing flashy about him. No dramatic entrance, no entourage, no aura that screamed celebrity. He simply moved through the office, eyes observing quietly, posture relaxed, every motion deliberate yet natural. Across the room, the office manager's attention snapped to him. Broad-shouldered, loud, and brimming with self-confidence, he leaned back in his chair, smirking as he sized up this seemingly ordinary newcomer. There was a spark of arrogance in his gaze, an assumption that this quiet man posed no challenge, that he could be easily dismissed or dominated. Something in Bruce's stillness caught the eye of nearby colleagues. A subtle tension hung in the air, almost invisible but palpable, like the calm before a storm. Have you ever underestimated someone at work, only to be surprised later? The office manager leaned back in his chair, broad shoulders filling the frame, fingers drumming against the polished wood of his desk. His voice carried across the room, sharp and commanding, cutting through the low hum of printers and the shuffle of papers. Every movement was exaggerated. A tap on a shoulder, a roll of the eyes, a dismissive wave toward a coworker. He thrived on the assumption that control came from size and volume, and he believed this quiet newcomer posed no challenge. Bruce Lee remained completely still, his posture relaxed, hands at his sides, eyes observing everything without judgment. He didn't respond to the overt gestures, the little jabs of attention, or the whispered remarks from colleagues. Each movement of the office manager seemed almost theatrical, designed to dominate the room, to provoke, to test. But Bruce's calm presence made it clear that the stage belonged to no one but himself. Coworkers nearby began to notice the subtle tension, their eyes flicking between the two men. The air felt heavier, every footstep and sign magnified in the stillness. The contrast was striking. The manager's loud, overconfident energy and Bruce's quiet, unshakable composure. Viewers sense that this isn't just a typical office interaction. The seeds of something larger are quietly taking root. As the manager leaned in closer, his chest almost brushing Bruce's shoulder, he issued a pointed remark meant to elicit submission or at least acknowledgement. Bruce tilted his head slightly, not with fear, but with measured curiosity, as if considering the weight of the statement. The room seemed to pause. Have you ever encountered someone whose calmness made you question your own confidence? The office manager's frustration began to show in small, involuntary ways. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, a subtle crack of knuckles echoing faintly across the room. His gestures became more dramatic, pointing at documents, leaning over desks, his voice rising slightly with each passing moment. What had started as casual arrogance now teetered toward irritation, though he still believed he controlled the scene. Around him, coworkers began to notice the shift. Whispered comments passed quietly between desks, a raised eyebrow here, a hand covering a small smile there. Their curiosity mixed with apprehension. Something about the manager's behavior seemed off, as though the balance of power in the room had quietly shifted. They watched Bruce Lee with growing interest, sensing that his calmness was not passive but deliberate, almost magnetic. From Bruce's perspective, the entire scene was under careful observation. Every movement of the manager, every subtle shift in posture was registered and analyzed. He remained unflustered, standing with quiet poise, letting the manager's agitation build without intervening. His breathing was steady, his eyes calm, a stark contrast to the rising tension around him. To an observer, it seemed as though time had slowed, each small detail magnified. The scratch of a pen, the shuffle of a foot, the faint rise and fall of someone's chest as they held their breath. The office environment itself became part of the tension. The whir of a printer, the faint hum of the air conditioning, the occasional cough or shuffle of papers. Every ordinary sound highlighted the extraordinary stillness of Bruce's presence. The manager, convinced that his size and authority dictated outcomes, leaned in further, misreading patience for submission. Have you ever noticed someone staying calm while others around them lose their cool? How did that change your perception of them? The office manager leaned forward, chest rising slightly with anticipation, convinced that his size and authority gave him the advantage. He issued a pointed remark, meant to provoke, to assert dominance over this quiet newcomer. Bruce Lee's eyes met his with calm curiosity, unflinching and measured. There was no hint of fear, no trace of anger, only a still, almost scientific attention. The manager misread it completely, seeing patience as weakness, composure as submission. As the manager's gestures grew bolder, Bruce made a subtle shift. It wasn't a dramatic movement. No wind-up, no theatrics, no visible tension. Just a small, deliberate adjustment of posture, a brief, precise motion that drew all attention without overt fanfare. In that instant, the manager's confidence faltered. The weight of his own arrogance collided with the quiet authority Bruce exuded. Colleagues froze mid-action. Someone's hand paused over a keyboard. Another's pen stopped scratching on paper. Eyes widened as the manager blinked in disbelief, processing what had just happened. A small gasp escaped. Whispers began to ripple across the office, and every observer felt the same mix of shock and awe. Bruce remained perfectly composed, breathing steady, posture unchanged, as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. In those few seconds, the lesson was clear. Skill, control, and precision carried far more weight than brute force. The office manager's posture shifted subtly, a flicker of humility crossing his face. The energy in the room changed, colleagues now aligning instinctively with the quiet authority of Bruce Lee. He had resolved the tension without chaos, without overreaction, and without unnecessary harm. The office manager stumbled slightly, caught off guard by what had just occurred. His hand instinctively pressed to his chest, a flush of disbelief crossing his face. A nearby colleague reached out, steadying him with a firm grip on his arm, guiding him back to his chair. The manager's broad confidence had dissolved in a few moments, replaced by a humbled, almost awkward awareness of the quiet authority he had misjudged. Every posture and movement seemed smaller, subdued, a stark contrast to the earlier arrogance that had filled the room. Meanwhile, Bruce Lee returned to his previous calm state. Hands at his sides, breathing steady, he engaged with his work as if nothing remarkable had taken place. Perhaps he answered a question from a coworker, maybe adjusted a document on his desk, moving with the same composed, unhurried energy that had characterized his presence all along. To an observer, it was as though he had performed a small miracle and then simply gone back to normal. The colleagues around them were frozen for a moment, exchanging glances that combined awe, disbelief, and admiration. Subtle nods, quiet whispers, and the faintest smiles began to ripple across the office, signaling shared recognition of the extraordinary skill they had just witnessed. The tension that had built so gradually was replaced with a collective sense of relief and fascination. Every small gesture, from a raised eyebrow to a slight shake of the head, reinforced the impact of what had just occurred. The office returned to its usual rhythm, printers humming softly, keyboards tapping, phones ringing in the background. Yet the memory of what had just unfolded lingered in the air, subtle but undeniable. Bruce Lee remained seated at his desk, calm, composed, as if the entire incident had been no more than a minor interruption in an otherwise ordinary day. His presence carried a quiet authority, the kind that commanded respect without demanding it. There was no triumphalism, no show of superiority, just a serene mastery that quietly shifted the energy in the room. To the colleagues who had witnessed the moment, the lesson was clear. Strength was not about size, volume, or intimidation. It was about control, the ability to act with precision, to maintain composure under pressure, and to resolve conflict efficiently without excess force. Even those who had initially sided with the office manager could not ignore the quiet impact of Bruce's demeanor. Each glance exchanged, each subtle nod or raised eyebrow, reflected a collective recognition. There are moments when restraint speaks louder than action. Do you think true strength is about physical power or the ability to stay calm under pressure? The office slowly settled back into its familiar rhythm. Printers hummed, keyboards clicked, and phone calls resumed, as though the extraordinary event that had just taken place belonged to another world. Yet the energy in the room had shifted. Subtle glances lingered on Bruce Lee as he returned to his desk, calm and deliberate, moving with the same quiet precision that had characterized his presence from the start. Each step, each adjustment of papers, seemed ordinary, but to those who had witnessed the earlier moment, it carried the weight of something far beyond ordinary. The office manager sat back, still pale and subdued, a faint tension in his shoulders that had not been there before. His confidence, once towering, had softened. The arrogance that had filled the space was now replaced with introspection. He avoided direct eye contact, choosing instead to focus on his work while quietly processing the lesson he had just experienced. The contrast between his unsettled state and Bruce's calm composure was striking, highlighting the subtle but profound impact of restraint and mastery. Around the office, the ripple effects were undeniable. Colleagues whispered in hushed tones, their conversations laced with awe and curiosity. Small gestures, a nod, a smile, a shake of the head, reflected shared recognition that something remarkable had occurred. The story began to take on a life of its own, passed from one person to another, growing with each retelling. The ordinary office setting had become the stage for a quiet legend, a testament to skill, patience, and control. The story of Bruce Lee in the office is told with an observational lens, focusing on human behavior, personal skill, and the subtle dynamics of interaction rather than sensationalism. The tone throughout is calm, reflective, and narrative-driven, like watching a scene unfold in real time. Viewers are invited to witness the contrast between composure and arrogance, quiet mastery and overconfidence, without being told who is right or wrong. The framing is deliberately interpretive. The audience is guided to notice reactions, gestures, and internal calm, all of which create insight into character and influence, rather than relying on overt judgment or dramatized conflict. The manager's subtle shock, the colleague's astonishment, Bruce's composed presence. The story builds natural suspense and engagement without exaggeration or unverified claims. The human reactions are the centerpiece, ensuring the content remains safe, relatable, and respectful to all involved. Thank you for watching this story unfold. If you enjoyed witnessing Bruce Lee's quiet mastery and the lessons it offers, take a moment to like, comment, and share your thoughts. What moments of calm or skill have surprised you in your own life? Your reflections help create a space where we can all appreciate the extraordinary in everyday situations. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that reveal human behavior, skill, and quiet mastery in ways you might not expect.